Today I want to talk about simplest form in fractions. Simplest form is exactly what it sounds like. You're putting a fraction in the easiest, the simplest form that you can remember it. Some fractions are easier for you to picture. They're called benchmark fractions. If I asked you to rip your paper in half, you'd be like, oh, okay, Mrs. Herneisen, I will rip it in half. If I asked for you to fold your paper into thirds, you'd be like, oh, I need to fold it in 3, and you'd probably fold the tops down a little bit and the bottom up a little bit, and you would end up with thirds. There's certain fractions that are easy for your brain to picture. 1/4, 1/3, 1/2. Then when we go along with those other fractions that end in those numbers, like 2/3 and 3/4, those are like benchmark fractions. They're the ones that are easiest for our brains to picture, and they are in what's called simplest form. But then you have other fractions. You're like 6/8. Well, it's tough for me kind of to, okay, I'm going to fold my paper into 6/8. That's tough for me to picture sometimes. I want to put a fraction in an easier form, a simpler form for me to remember. So what I need to do is I need to figure out all the factors of 6. So let's see, 1 times 6 is 6, and 2 times 3 is 6, and then 3 times, okay. There are all my factors. Now I'm going to figure out all my factors of 8. 1 and 8 are factors, and 2 and 4 are factors. 4, well, we already have that one. So there are all my factors of 8. So then what I'm going to look at is I'm going to look for something called the greatest common factor. I want to find the greatest, the largest, the biggest number that is common between these two. So what numbers do we have that are the same? Well, 1 is in both of them, and 2's in both of them, 3 and 6. Okay, these are the only common factors they have. They both have 1's and they both have 2. Which one's the greatest? 2 is the greatest common factor. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, how many times does 2 go into 6? Well, it goes in 3 times. How many times does 2 go into 8? It goes in 4 times. So guess what I just did? I just put 6/8 in its simplest form, which is 3/4. 3/4 and 6/8 are naming the same amount, but this is a little bit easier for me to picture in my brain. Did you see how that works? I'll show you another example.